All right, well, let's move on to the DM question of the week. So, the DM question of the week this week is how to handle unorthodox player actions. So these are actions like I do a backflip off the wall and shoot a bow while I'm in the air at the goblin that is at the second level. So it's like, okay, so you're technically just shooting a bow, but how do you figure this out, right? So just some DMs, you may be newer DMs, you may not know how to handle these things because there's no like actual rule for that. But you don't want to just say you can't do it because the whole point of D&D is to actually do the
It's
things you want
supposed to
do.
be cool.
Yeah.
You want to be Legolas and jump on a giant elephant and just somehow kill. Yeah, exactly. Just be total BA.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so what do you have to say about this?
So basically, what I kind of usually do, people have done this for me before. I usually say if they want to do the quadruple backflip and shoot the goblin boss in the eyeball. I don't know.
Yeah.
I kind of negate the eyeball part unless they get a natural 20.
Right.
That's kind of the only thing. But if they want to do some very cool movement where they jump on the wall, that's part of their movement technically, which you can do in a turn. So you put in their movement. You'll say this will take some of your movement if you want to like run on the wall. But you just give them a athletics or probably acrobatics check. So usually do like a check before you do that stuff. So if like two people are sword fighting on like a wall, something like that.
All right. So to break down what you just said in a more general sense, what you do is you take what they tell you and you apply rules that already exist to them. Mm-hmm. So if they're doing a quadruple backflip, you're giving them a check. And this is just a check to make sure they can do it. With the wall thing, it was interesting. Instead of you making them do a check, you just said that's basically difficult terrain.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. So it's like double movement or something. And that's how you do it. That's one of the ways. So when you don't know how to give someone, like how to allow something, one of the first things to look for is, are there any rules that can be slightly altered to fit, right? So like if you say, I want to use my whip to strangle them, or like grab their foot and trip them. That's not a whip ability, but that could be like a type of grapple, perhaps.
Yeah, like instead of attacking, you're trying to grapple them.
Yeah.
And like pull them, which is smart, which I love.
Right.
Stuff like that.
And so that's what you can do. You can take something in a rule and shift it and kind of just apply it to something else. That can be hard to do if you don't really know the rules. But so there are some things to consider, which is why we're doing this question. One is when you have crazy things happen, you want to make sure you're not privileging any one player over the other. Let's say you have a rogue who does all this crazy stuff, and then you have a fighter who just wants to hit things. Both of them should still be doing equal stuff. You know what I mean? Sure, if the rogue wants to do a backflip, give them that ability, and you don't have to tell the fighter to do a backflip, obviously. But make sure the rogue doesn't get to do like extra damage or anything because they said it, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. So if the rogue's like, I want to stab him in the eye, and the fighter says, I want to stab him, period, they should be the same. You shouldn't be privileging.
Yeah, like you shouldn't say the guy's blind now because you said you stabbed him in the eyeball.
Right.
Like that's why I put the natural 20.
You can say that if you want, but then you have to also give it to your fighter too.
Yeah.
If the fighter stabs them in the eye, then give them, they also blind, right? It doesn't just go to one player. So it's one thing to do. Also, you need to consider how allowing kind of crazier actions will affect your campaign. So one, if you do make the rogue able to blind them, you've now said to everyone that you can do more things than your character sheet says if you word it, right? Mm-hmm. And that can be dangerous because it kind of makes things a little chaotic sometimes because it's like, well, last time you let me blind them, why don't you let me do it this time? And stuff like that. So you want to be consistent. So I would stay clear of kind of giving them extra abilities. And also you don't want to let anyone take up too much time. You don't want to, if someone says I do a quadruple backflip and I also spring off the wall and blah, 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 do not do like 4 checks. Like be like, all right, that's either that either just happens, like you can just say like, all right, you do a backflip, it doesn't make a difference. I mean, who cares? Or if it does make a difference, make it as quick as possible. And if it takes too long, say like, nah, 6 seconds, that's too much. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, keep that in mind. Do you have something else?
Yeah, no, you could also be like creative with this stuff. So let's say you have like a rogue who has like a whip or like a chain that pulls people close and he gets to attack. If he wants to say he does like a backflip, you can if they succeed, that might give like the other person disadvantage on the opportunity attack. But if they fail the backflip, they're prone and the guy gets like advantage to hit. So you can do stuff like that to balance, make it more interesting.
Right.
So like
yeah,
stuff
that
like
is
that.
what you have like the clashing rule. It's kind of similar.
Yeah, one of my friends, and I think a very famous Twitch. So basically, it's like if you want to, you can choose to clash, which is kind of like Luke Skywalker and Darth Vader when they hit their lightsabers and they're fighting for like power. So there's like melee.
That's called a bind in actual sword fighting.
A bind, I guess, and then it's like melee. It's mental. And then there's soul, and then there's magical. So, the Harry Potter Voldemort, the magic clash. So basically, you do a clash and you roll like, I don't know, 3D20s, and depending on which one it is, if it's like strength or wisdom, whoever gets the highest one gets like, they get to do something like crazy, like major damage. That's up to like the DM and something like that. And you can have like beings that are really good at certain clashes. So,
yeah. So to summarize, you're adding an ability called clashing. And what clashing is you attack to do something extra. So you can say, like, I try to cut off his head, and then you clash, and if you win, you get to do it. But the whole downside is if you lose the clash, they actually do it to you or something like that.
Something like let's say you want to chop off, like, their head. If you lose, they'll just cut your leg, and you can't, your leg like is gone.
Yeah,
they cut off your leg and then you're at half speed forever. so something bad risky. Like that happened. Or like if you do like a soul clash, you mess up your soul, so now you're like mega cursed or something like that. Magic clash, you get, I don't know, you can't use certain spells anymore, stuff, up to the DM. I thought it was pretty cool, but do stuff like that. So make combat. Honestly, I should start doing that more. Make combat more interesting. Like,
yeah, clashing is interesting. It's just another rule to keep track of. But yeah, you can throw another rule. If your players are like always doing crazy stuff and wanting to hit things right in the eye and always like doing stuff like that, then add the clashing rule, because the clashing rule allows it. You can say, all right, you're going for the eye. If you hit him, you blind him. But if you miss, something happens. You know what I mean?
He deflects your arrow at your eye.
Yeah.
I don't know, something stupid. Do you know a guy in real life?
Well, if it was an arrow, that one's a little harder. I would think it'd be like, you can try. If you miss, though, that extra time you spend aiming at his eye, that takes an extra turn. So you lose a turn.
Yeah, actually, in real life, there was a dude that got shot in the eye with the arrow. He took it out and ate his eye.
Okay.
Really? I don't know, just fun fact. I don't know if there's probably some Chinese.
I really doubt that happened.
No, it did happen. It was this Chinese duelist. I forget what name he is. He said the reason why he did is because he didn't want to put his body to waste, so he just eats his eye. But the dude who shot him was like, what just happened? Why would you do that? I forget the name, but apparently it did happen, yeah. He was a swordsman. He got shot.
Wow.
Angry.
Okay, so there's that. So the last thing is, if you're unsure what call to make, this is general DM advice. Just do something. Don't waste the game trying to figure it out. Just pick something, stick with it, and then at the end of the session, you can ask everyone kind of what they think or not, and just figure it out. But yeah, just pick something and go. All right, so that's the DM question of the week. Hopefully that helps with anyone who is unsure how to handle some weird actions.